Hey everybody, I'm Jeff Bower.
And I'm Joey Marino. Welcome to Actor Chats.
This week we have the first part of our interview with Nate Corddry.
You probably know Nate from his roles on Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, Harry's Law, and most recently the Chuck Lorre sitcom Mom.
In this segment, Nate talks about a play he did in college that really changed the way he looked at art, script analysis, and Bogart's Viewpoints, and what it's like being on a set.
Actor Chats with Nate Corddry.
Welcome to Actor Chats. Today we have Nate Corddry.
I'm here.
Yeah, and Nate is the first actor to be, interviewed at the Actor Chats headquarters.
Yes,
Exactly. Pretty impressive. It's in Los Feliz, California. Kind of like Google. What do you say?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very much like that.
The layout's similar, but Google doesn't have an angry 16-year-old cat that might wander through it.
Oh, I look forward to meeting him or her.
Her. She'll be grumpy here in a minute.
Fair enough.
So we always start Actor Chats kind of like a superhero origin story, if you will, about you becoming an actor. Was there a specific story or moment or something you remember that really triggered, this is what I want to do?
The first time I wanted to be on stage was seeing my older brother, Rob, who's an actor as well, on stage in the senior class play when I was 9 or 10. And I saw, and being 9 or 10, all you see is just the attention and the love from strangers. And as the youngest, I got plenty of attention, but I wanted more. I didn't think it was enough. So I saw my brother do that, and I saw this pack of girls standing around him after the show, and I was like, I want a piece of that action. Even then, I was chasing. Exactly. So I saw basically just, there was no artistic or creative choice. It was just wanting attention, wanting positive reinforcement. And then as you get older and wiser and get more experience, you rediscover it. I rediscovered it in college. Sophomore in college, I did a really beautiful play that moved me in a way that I hadn't really been moved before, and it moved the audience in a way that I hadn't experienced. And I saw the power that really good, compelling storytelling can have to change people's points of view, which is really at the heart of sort of what we all do, is that power to affect change. And so in college is when I realized sort of the power of it and how good it felt to channel different emotions and be able to get in touch with those emotions that you may not otherwise be able to get in touch with in your regular day-to-day. So I guess it started out just as a kid wanting attention, and then as I grew up and matured, it turned into something different.
What was the play? What show was it?
It was a play called Under the Bridge, which was the student-written play about a father and a son who are on a bridge. The father is dead, he's a ghost. And the son, it's this long monologue, the son talking about being this liberal sort of teacher, progressive guy in the Deep South, and how his father was a racist, and he came from this awful town. And as the play progresses, you see him turn into his dad, basically. You see him start fighting against the horrors of the government and the liberal left, and he starts to buy into his dad's concepts, and it makes sense. You understand why those types of points of view are handed down from fathers to sons. And it was just a streamlined, beautiful, simple play. And it really moved people, and people were sort of blown away by it. And I saw standing up there, like, the power you had. And that play will always sort of... I reread it, actually. I still have a copy of it. I reread it last year. It doesn't hold up as well as it, as I hoped it would be.
There's just things in it that...
Yeah, it's written by a college student, so it has obvious holes.
What made you reread it recently?
Because I wasn't the right age doing it in college. I was much too young to do it, but you do that when you're in college. I'm now the appropriate age to play that part. And I thought, well, maybe I can, because it's only 2 characters, it's a very simple set, it's a great play, maybe I could put it up myself here in LA. And reread it and was like, no, this is unproducible.
Yeah.
But when you're 19, it's you have a different point of view.
Did you remember any of the dialogue?
No.
No,
I don't.
But you can just kind of remember.
I remember the arc of it. I remember the ghost of my father is behind me, and he has like little lines now and then that start off kind of funny, and then they turn sort of dark and racist and dangerous. And he has this shotgun in his hand, and he's like on patrol. And the last 5 minutes of the play, he very casually, he walks behind me and he hands me the gun, and I take it and I put it into my hands, and it's very comfortable in my hands, and I stand up and he sits down, and I sort of begin to guard this bridge. And it was just a really beautiful, and it was actually, the director did a really great thing. He didn't have us bow. We just kind of stood up there, and the play ended with me with this sort of chilling final line that I wish I remembered, basically saying, like, I'm better now because I have this point of view. And the lights go out, and the lights just came up, and we just stood there frozen. And the audience applauded, we didn't bow, and then the lights just came up, and we didn't leave the stage. We just stood up there on this bridge, and people had to, like, awkwardly walk out with us still standing there. And it left this very sort of strange, feeling with the audience, which was great fun.
Does politics run through? Because very often, some of the best theater back in the group theater, like Waiting for Lefty and all those
Sure, yeah.
plays, definitely had that. So that was part of it for you, that you could have a voice through plays.
Yeah. God, what was that one night? It's the night Thoreau spent in jail.
Yeah.
That's another play that I found in college that I love, but I don't know if it's producible either. Political plays are the most blatant ways to change people's point of view.
And you're from Massachusetts, which is a very liberal town and a political town. Did that have something to do with that maybe undercurrent of you wanted to have a voice?
I don't think so. I think everyone wants to have a voice, and everyone wants to try to affect change in some way that they can, whether it's a small amount of change like in their office or a bigger change in front of a theater of 500 people. I think everyone has that, I think we all feel powerless at times in our life, and if we have some way to sort of try to have some sort of power to change people's minds, to affect change, I think we all try to do it. But I don't think growing up in Massachusetts, it had nothing to do with my family. My family was not a very political family. We never really talked about politics. We weren't a creative family either. We were classic New England wasps who hated art. Never went to the theater, never saw live music, never went to museums. It was like Boy Scouts and baseball, basically. So I came to the arts like very late in my life.
And how did you decide to jettison to another level? I mean, how did that happen?
What do you mean?
From college, and then saying, okay, did you say, okay, I want to do this professionally? And
I think I realized that in college. I was a communications and English major. I thought I was going to be behind the scenes. I thought I'd work in production, radio or television production. And I worked at a radio station in high school, and I was interested in sort of the behind the scenes of production. And so I worked at the radio station in college, and I did some like local TV stuff through my college as well, but it didn't satisfy me the way that being on stage and being in rehearsal satisfied me.
So did it grab you? I mean, did they pluck you, or did you kind of go forward?
When I was in college, I did all the plays. I auditioned for every play, and I took the acting like, I didn't go to a school that had a theater major, so I was like the one actor at the school. So there was very little in the way of class, but I got on stage every semester, which was good, which is the way I sort of learned on stage as opposed to in a classroom. And that has its benefits and its sort of drawbacks.
What are those?
I think being on stage, you get to... Failing in class is a little different than failing on stage. The stakes are higher. And you just have to learn by doing. Like, it's just sort of any other job. Like, you get thrown down in front of a computer and figure out this business and go. You got to figure it out. So you're forced to use all of your muscles that you may not even knew that you had before, to try to solve a problem. Whereas in class, in a conservatory, they start at the very beginning and they break you down and then they teach you every step of the way. So I think you're sort of hamstrung in that way, because you're having someone else tell you how to do it, as opposed to sort of discovering it on your own, which for me, I think was helpful.
What do you think were some of your mistakes early, thinking about like craft stuff, like, oh, I wish I would have known this one thing sooner or whatever?
Well, script analysis I was behind on. It wasn't until I was a little bit older and out of college and trying to pursue it professionally and taking classes with other people who had more experience than I did, where I realized that I had to do a lot more script work, which I didn't have the vocabulary for before that. So I would just make impulsive decisions before, because I didn't do the math of it. I just sort of followed the words and acted on it. Yeah,
happened.
As opposed to digging a little bit deeper and having that inform sort of the subtlety of your work.
Well, there's a particular, there's many different inroads to it and ways, and Meisner and Stanislavski. Well, everything kind of comes somewhat from there. But was there any particular bent that you kind of gravitated toward that said, "Oh, that's kind of like what I go for"?
No, the only thing that really jazzed me, and that really spoke to me in a way that that no other sort of like teaching tool had, was this was Viewpoints work. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of that.
Yeah.
When I first was told about it, I thought, oh, this is pretentious and this is bullshit, and I'm not going to buy into this. And then I got into the room, and the teacher was a very grounded, literal guy, and was not a bullshit artist, and was treated it in a really honest, wonderful way, and I really responded to him. And for me, like, the nuts and bolts of it is basically there's no dialogue. There's just, you're in a room with a group of people, and you're standing, and you're physically responding to each other. So if you're all standing there, if there's 10 of you standing in a room, and one of you moves your left hand, you respond in some way, however you feel like responding, whether that's nothing or putting your hand on your face or whatever. So it's just, you're all sort of moving in this space. And that part of it, I was like, what the fuck is this? How does this help? But when you really drill down and get to the specificity of it, it's about having your radar, your internal actor radar, at 100 all the time. So when you're in a scene with someone, you're always watching and you're always aware of their physicality. And the subtlest moves, this is especially helpful in film when the audience is a foot away from you. When someone physically adjusts, all that stuff is so small and minor and specific, and you have to respond to each time. You just have to have, whether you respond or not, it's up to you as an acting choice, but you have to be aware that it's happening. Wow. So it's just about being, it's really what the heart of acting is just being sensitive.
Wow.
To me, it's just being very sensitive and being open to the person who's across from you, and being willing to respond to their stimuli, whether it's them laughing or crying or running or sitting or whatever it is.
That's really good.
Yeah, responding to them in an honest, physical way. So
was that is there a name for that, or it was just something that he?
Well, you're talking about the Anne Bogart kind of developed that.
Yes.
The 9 viewpoints, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
When I studied it, what I felt for me was it takes you out of that actor mentality of thinking about yourself all the time and like forces you then to actually be engaged in the scene. And that was like, for a young actor, it's fantastic.
It's
that
everything.
Yeah.
Some of the, Lee Strasberg and those things, bless him. But I think sometimes people get very neurotic,
Right.
putting the attention, on how do I something about their dead
Sure.
dog or
Yeah.
whatever like that. And I think if you put your attention out there, and I think it can be very liberating and helpful.
It's a very vulnerable thing. You get to hide behind a quote unquote part you're playing, but when you're exposing yourself to an audience, they're looking at you. No matter how hard Daniel Day-Lewis wants to be Abraham Lincoln, he isn't. That's
Right.
Daniel Day-Lewis, and you're watching him, and that is you, and you're putting yourself out there in a very kind of scary way, being judged by other people. So it's helpful to think of others and respond to them as opposed to being caught up in your own shit, which is sort of piggyback on what
So do you
what
think
said.
that how much of acting for you is you? And
when you get a role, you don't necessarily like try to create this character like
Right.
That's kind of like the old school, or maybe like what you do in like high school or college. I think what Joey's saying is like, do you start with yourself and what is similar between me and this character?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I don't try to become someone else, because that's just, in my point of view, that's impossible.
yeah,
Every character that you play is a version of yourself, because it is your hands and your face and your eyes. So you're working within these. You have a certain set of.
it's quality.
Yeah. All you have is yourself. So every character is going to be some sort of version of yourself. But for me, when I'm starting on creating character, really I try not to do any sort of actory stuff. I just try to go through the text, just follow what the words are. I feel like David Mamet, who is a writer, so of course he would say that that great book he wrote, True or False. Yes, yeah. And he just basically says like the key to acting is just not to act, is to get out of your own way and just say the words as they're written, and the words will do the work, which is typical of a playwright to say. But I sort of try to follow that. The map is in front of you. The map is the script. That's the treasure map to what this character ends up being. So if you follow the words, follow the punctuation, and honor that, you'll be okay. And at some point you just have to sort of trust yourself that you have the ability to do it, which takes a long time to achieve. But to not, I don't know, when I was younger, I worried myself sick, and every time I went on set I'd have a fucking heart attack, but life is too short, and at some point you have to say, they chose me to do this for a reason. I'm here because I can do this. So trust the words, trust that the job has been done for you basically already by the playwright or screenwriter or whatever, and get out of your own way. So I try to do that as much as possible.
So when you get a script, what might be the first, and when should you learn the lines, or when do you need to learn the lines?
I guess it depends on the job. For a play, I just did a play this summer.
I just saw you, and I said, as I passed by, I saw you. I guess I was thinking to myself, is he learning the lines so when he gets there, he'll know them or not? So did you do that?
For the play, I didn't, because it was 68 pages, and I wasn't able to memorize all of that without being on my feet and interacting with other people. And it's hard for me to memorize. I can memorize 10 pages, but 60 pages is just I couldn't do it. Yeah. And I needed to have that physical. My brain, like, when I move to the piano, when I move to this chair, I say this. And
everybody's different that way. And so you like to physicalize that, and that helps you get it in you.
Yeah, the words come easier that way, and you just can't do that when you're just reading a play. So I didn't memorize the play until I got into rehearsal, and then I memorized it while we were working on my feet. But with a television gig or like a movie gig, I'm fully memorized. I've done all my homework. There's no time for rehearsal usually. You have to rehearse. You have to come with all of your homework done. No one has time to help you through a performance. You got to be camera ready, the minute you step on stage.
When did you jettison to television and film? How did that happen? And what was some of your first?
I got an agent in New York through. I spent summers at this summer theater called Williamstown, which is in Western Mass, which has a wonderful reputation. And I sort of came up through that theater company. And I spent 3 or 4 summers there, and then they have a showcase in New York for the young actors in their acting company. And that's how I got my agent. So I started auditioning for plays and small parts in movies, and didn't have a lot of success. And then I did, 1 episode of Law and Order, as every New York actor does. I did a tour of a play for a year, and a bunch of TV commercials. That was the way that I paid the bills, is I was able to do commercials.
And were you learning about the camera too when you did the commercials? Was that a bit of a training ground, just to go, this is
I mean, you don't learn that in grad school. Certainly, you have to learn on set. It's funny, like in theater training, that it's all about like mystifying the process, and
that's
then when you
great point.
Yeah,
that's a great point.
Yeah, and then you get out here and you get on set, and it's all about demystifying it. It is a job. There are men and women here all coming together to create this thing, and you're just one cog in this machine. And there is no magic. There's no magic involved. There's nothing to be scared about. There's no fucking secret magic recipe that you have to learn, which I always felt. It's real. It's
perfect.
It's just it's a job, just like every other job.
You know what I noticed being on set is that kids from this town, they've demystified the whole process, because they're a little kid, and I was working on ER. They had the Anthony Edwards kid. They call action. They have a headset on. They go action. And he's probably thinking later on, if he decides to work in the industry, that it's absolutely been demystified. But I remember walking on my first set, and I'm walking around with my eyes as big as saucers.
Absolutely.
And it really takes a lot to break that down. So that was beginning to happen for you, that your craft was holding you up and your sense of...
Yeah, like things were, I was lucky enough to get work and it was working. And I didn't need to think that I had to like find some magic scheme to get there. Like I was enough. I'm able to interpret human emotions to other people, and that's really all it is.
So that concludes our first part with Nate Corddry.
That was enough. That's important.
Yeah, I thought that was great. Something we talked about too after our interview with Nate is how amazing it is that he's worked with such incredible people in his career, and it's a testament to how great of an actor he is.
I know. It seems like whoever he wants to work with, there they are, and there he is working with
Right, David E. Kelley, Kathy Bates.
It's incredible.
Yeah, Matthew Perry, Studio 60.
The guy's
Sorkin.
good.
Yeah, he's good. Be sure to tune in next time when Nate talks about working on United States of Terra, working alongside Kathy Bates and Harry's Law, and not compromising your work.
This has been Actor Chats with Nate Corddry.